5, 4, 3, 2. Tony Repanich, thank you so much for being here.
Jay, good to see you as always.
Good to see you as always. I feel like we're here. We're in the beginning of December 2025. I feel like it's a good time to sort of take a deep breath. It's post MJ Biz, pre-holiday time. We have a webinar coming up next Tuesday, on Tuesday.
I'm really excited for that. It should be great.
I'm super excited. We'll talk about that in a second. But we are here at this time of, I'll call it reflection, right? End of the year, almost the beginning of next. It's a good time to sort of take stock of where we've been in 2025. I don't want to ask you to give a grade on 2025 because I'm scared of that. But like, we like to do this with our kids. Rosebud, thorn, like things that were awful, things that were okay, things you're looking forward to. But like, how would you rate 2025 in terms of cannabis overall? Or has anything changed since last time we talked in 2024?
I was kind of rated in like how much of the year was just another Groundhog's Day sort of scenario, just playing it over and over again. You know, obviously, as we wrapped up the year, these changes to the hemp market that got inserted into the continuing resolution, super interesting. And I know people have a varying degree of opinions on this, but for licensed operators in many states, this has been a real challenge. You know, state governments had already been looking at this and taking action. So I think it will be very interesting to see how this plays out. But I think that was sort of the unexpected curveball that happened there, that we went something that was so extreme and that they were able to get that into the continuing resolution. You know, the rest of the year, I think the air came out of the tires a little bit. I think when we started out at the beginning of the year and when we talked at the end of last year, I think there was still some optimism around rescheduling and the potential impacts on 280E, and that just keeps getting drug out longer and longer. And so I think that took a little air out of the tires for our bankers that we work with, who would love to lend to the industry more. And of course, for the licensed operators who are stuck paying those terribly outsized tax bills, even if they're just reserving for them, just the fact that they have to reserve for that is pretty harsh on their profit and loss statement.
Yeah, it's been, I don't even know how to describe it, but Groundhog Day is a good one because it seems like we have some of the same conversations year over year. And your point, sort of the hemp conversation in DC and call it the hemp ban, if you will, to go into effect 300 something days from now, was a sort of an unexpected curveball, but one that that everybody has some opinion on, right? It's a curveball that and we were just, you were in Las Vegas, I was in Las Vegas. How people want to hit that curveball depends on where you sit, I think, and it's not always obvious, right? There are some MSOs that are saying, oh, this is terrible. Some MSOs saying this is the greatest thing in the world. There are actually some hemp folks saying, while this isn't ideal, at least it'll get rid of the bad players and maybe we can have a fresh start. Like, how you come at it is not necessarily obvious as an industry or as an industry plus. And that was at least a lot of the conversation, I think, in Las Vegas, at least the parts that I heard.
Yeah, I think everybody's trying to figure out how to navigate it. And like you said, it's even which side to pick, like here, like what do I want to win in this situation? And I think we all wanted to see some degree of reform around these intoxicating hemp products, but this outright ban, you know, given that some of these players in the space have a foot in both camps, this is a really challenging conversation. I think you maybe published just today or last week a story about, you know, how is the federal government even going to enforce these changes, and so what does that really mean when it comes to intoxicating hemp? So I think we've got a lot to learn here in the coming months. It's going to create a lot of noise and probably not a lot of progress, which is the sad part.
The one thing that I think has been under talked about, certainly in Las Vegas, and I think from an industry or both sides of the industry perspective, is consumers getting something taken away from them that they actually enjoy. I mean, the regulations notwithstanding, is that many parts of the country, huge swaths of the country, certainly in the South, this is how they're accessing THC and accessing it in large, certainly dollar value, large amounts, and having that taken away, if you will, I think we'll have repercussions that I'm not sure elected officials saw coming, because I'm not sure they have their ear to the ground as closely as sort of we do. But that will be interesting to see. And that is, again, on the horizon in 2026. Anything from your perspective, like, I don't want to ask you to make predictions, certainly around rescheduling or 280E for 2026, because it'll probably sound like 2023. But like, something, to my mind, something will happen, right? There's a lot of movement, and it's an election year, which sometimes means nothing happens. But this is actually now on the front burner, I think, for elected officials now that they've had this hemp conversation. I mean, I don't want to ask if you're hopeful or optimistic, although I think a lot of people in the industry are, just because they're in an industry that's so uncertain. They have to be optimistic about something. But like, anything to be optimistic about that we can hang our hat on as we turn the calendar to January?
I think given some of the other headwinds that are facing the administration, given the popularity of cannabis, this is an area where I think we could see the administration just take a very sort of self-serving sort of position here. And they've already sort of indicated that's a direction that they would take. Now, the timing of that and how close that needs to be to the election to be beneficial to the party, hard to say. Obviously, we know we've got some real hardliners in the Republican side, especially at the House level, that are very against this. But I think a majority of House members are looking to figure out how to keep their seat. And obviously, this administration is very focused on how do they preserve their control of the House through whatever means it takes. And so if this adds or retains a few seats for them by putting some support behind it, I think the industry will take it. So I think we could still see something happen, a sort of a Hail Mary on rescheduling this year. My guess is voters' memories are pretty short, it seems like. I think it would be advantageous to do that closer to the election, not right out of the start, not at the start of the year, but hard to see. There's a lot of headwinds facing the administration, and so a positive distraction could be this could be the thing they throw over the fence to create some positive headwinds for themselves.
It's an administration that's taken distraction to a whole new level. I'm being honest, and I'm making that from a lens of sitting here in Toronto. But it certainly they've thrown a lot against the wall.
Nice of you to call us from our 51st state. It's nice to see you today.
Well, you live quite close to the 51st state too, on the other coast, I think. So
I do.
Oh, it's a. I'm glad people are laughing when they say it, because earlier in the year, people actually weren't laughing when they were saying it. They were actually saying it deadpan and serious. So at least the giggle has been added to that. Yes. And I want to shift for a second, because we have a webinar coming up on Tuesday where we are doing a little bit of the same thing, sort of looking back and specifically talking about initially your part of the presentation will be about your operator survey. Industry survey, talking about where people think certainly the relationships are with their financial institutions and banks. Give us a little preview or teaser of what you'll be talking about, because I think within that is a really juicy part of sort of getting really at where the industry is thinking right now.
Yeah, each year we reach out to licensed operators who really want to understand their relationship with their financial institution.
Yeah.
If we think back to the early days of cannabis banking, in most states, you were sort of subject to the one place you could get a bank account. And so it wasn't a degree of choice, it was a degree of necessity. And so now in most markets, licensed operators have choice. And so with choice, how does that impact their relationship with their financial institution, and how are they feeling? I think the big takeaway from our survey is really that most licensed operators are pretty appreciative of what their bankers are doing and the products and services they're offering. Now, that's not to say, and we'll talk about some of the areas where they'd like to see their bankers do more. There's opportunity, but by and large, licensed operators are pretty satisfied with their banking relationship and appreciative of the work that their bankers are doing to serve this industry. No surprise to anyone. Access to credit, it still drives a lot of what the industry is looking for, as they're trying to lower their cost of capital, become more profitable, manage their cash flow. And so we'll talk a little bit about lending needs when we get into that. And we've got some great consultants that we work with in this space that will we'll have a little panel discussion with them and talk about some of the findings from the survey and how that's impacting their clients directly.
Yeah, it is interesting. I would say, in addition to the conversation, people gossiping about MJ Biz, but also about the hemp conversation in Las Vegas, the conversation is for the umpteenth year, I think, about capital. We asked an entrepreneur in one of our shows, like, they started a business at the beginning of sort of cannabis in Canada, and they started one about a year ago. I wanted to ask him, did he like starting at the beginning of an industry or sort of 2.0, 3.0? He said, you've learned so much. It's always good to sort of go in with background and sort of knowledge. He said, but the money is not raining from the sky anymore. And so it's a big, you have to be operational from like day one, as opposed to never. It's hard to, in Canada, certainly, it seems like a very long time ago that money was raining from the sky, but it actually was at one point. And the industry has changed so much, certainly on the US side, that it's almost hard to think about days like that.
It was so interesting because one of the other things that we do as part of this survey work is we also do a big benchmarking study with our bankers to really understand, like, what's the value of this business to their financial institution?
Right.
Why should other bankers consider getting into it? And one of the detractors in the cannabis business from a banker's perspective is that money raining from the sky sat on those bank balance sheets for some period of time. It takes a while to deploy that capital.
Right.
Well, bankers love bank balances that are sitting there at no non-interest bearing.
Right.
And what we've seen is, as that money stops raining from the sky, is the average balance that a licensed operator contributes to a financial institution is down considerably. So that's an area that's a little bit of for some financial institutions, it has them reevaluating the profitability of being in this space. And so that's good, and that it's good and bad. In some ways, they're saying, is the juice worth the squeeze? In other ways, they're saying, well, what other products and services can we offer these customers so that they are more profitable to us? And so that actually opens up more opportunity for those licensed operators to have access to a fuller suite of financial services. So sort of a yin and a yang there on the raining from the sky capital. But I know our bankers are missing that a little bit.
Yeah. I also wonder, and this is more hypothetical and maybe looking into 2026, that many of the operators have weathered, are in an ongoing way, weathering a storm, but becoming better operators every day. Worse operators have either gone by the wayside or will shortly. And I wonder if that factors into sort of the way bankers and financial institutions think about the industry, that the operators are actually getting better as they go, in that they are actually operating and staying afloat. Like, does that have any resonance in sort of in your world, that the operators have been in business, 2, 3, 4 years, that sort of track record, as opposed to being in month 3 and, accessing banking, they're now in year 3. They actually have a tracker. Does that have resonance in your world?
I think if you look at any like credit write-up, whether you're in cannabis or just everyday business outside of the cannabis industry, there's a portion of that write-up for a lender that's going to be about character. It's the character of the management team, their time in the business, their ability to manage to expectations. And so I think what you're talking about is viewed very positively, that we're working through sort of the lottery ticket stage that in some markets, when people received these licenses, that everybody was going to be a winner, and every license was a winning lottery ticket. And now it's like, these are hard businesses to run, and you have to really be focused on how do you obtain profitability and what's your strategy long term. And so that professionalization of management teams, the track records that they're setting, hugely important to our bankers. And those companies that our bankers know that have those teams, they're being called on frequently to say, hey, come bank with us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's always good to connect with you, do a look back, a look forward, and preview what we're going to have coming up on Tuesday. That's at noon on Tuesday the 16th, noon Eastern, Tuesday the 16th. You can find it on our website, cultivated.news. Find our LinkedIn page as well. That's where it'll be streaming. You can just find us on LinkedIn. It's easy to find us there. Register there. Tony, we will see you back next Tuesday. We appreciate your time today. Appreciate the partnership with Shield on this and other projects throughout the year. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
Thanks, Jay.
Great. Thanks, everybody.